This is Partners in Crime with Adam Croft and Robert Daws.
Well, we didn't hear the theme tune there, but hopefully it's working. I think we're on.
Did it actually? It's the first time we've not heard the theme tune at the beginning of an episode. I'm slightly discombobulated.
Well, I have been playing around with my sound equipment, so that might explain it.
Yes, again.
You'll notice if you
it's
can...
not an arrestable offence.
It's not. It's not. I was just looking at the video, actually, which is going out to Patreon. I can see that I've managed to position that microphone right in front of your face.
Yes, you've been trying that for all 120 episodes so far, and you've managed to pull it off. Yes, I can't. And that reminds me, 121 today, 121 today. We've got the key to Adam's studio. Never had the key to Adam's studio before. It doesn't really scan, does it? Never mind. But you get the point. 121 episodes.
I think it's 121.
It is.
I think it
last
is.
week was 120. Therefore, you don't mean to show off my fine education, but I think that makes this 121.
There we go.
I'm sure people will be correcting me all over the world.
That's what grammar schools do for you.
Yeah, well.
But yeah, we were back in the studio this week. Took me a little while to get everything set back up again. And it's a little bit weird to be back here because last week we were doing this in Rutland Water. But not far off.
Within sight of Rutland Water. That was such fun. I mean, I really thoroughly enjoyed myself. It's when Adam said, get in your car. It's an hour drive north from here. It's a lovely spot, and we'll have some lunch, and we'll do a bit of podcasting as well. But it was wonderful, a beautiful setting, as we said last week, and a great lunch at the Nelson in Oakham. Which was particularly pleasant, care of your father and mother, which thank you very much to both of them for that, and a wonderful visit to the bookshop there, which was stacking hundreds of copies by a certain crime writer of renown, I think is the best way to put it.
Infamous, I think, is probably a
How are
better
you? Have
word.
you survived it? I mean, what was your takeaway? Well, I've wanted to say that phrase. What was your takeaway for the Rutland Water?
Don't do
escapade?
it again for another 6 months. Have a rest this time.
Go sailing.
Yeah. It's been it's been a phenomenally busy year, and I'm really kind of starting to feel the back end of it now, which is, I guess, where we are, being in nearly mid-October. So yeah, I'm calming down those sides of things now for a few weeks. I'm going to focus on writing the next couple of books.
Yes,
in a fairly sedate manner, and not hopefully running around.
Well, I won't believe
too
that
much.
until I see pictures.
No. Well.
So, and also filling around with high-tech stuff. I've walked in this today, kind listeners, and he has this sort of, it resembles sections of the bridge on modern day Star Trek, and needless to say, it hasn't worked, but it will do. So there was steam coming out of his earphones this morning as I came in, and I said, "What are all those knobs and slidey things?" And he said, "They are essential to life as we know it, Bob." That again has yet to be proven. So yeah, when all that is up and running, what will it do? The new knobbly bits with slides
Make life a lot easier for me. Mostly,
right.
Mostly.
I see. Do I come into that equation? Will it make my life in any way easier?
It means I can make you quiet more quickly.
So it just continues to make your life easier.
Mostly that.
So, yes, what a week we've been just having a conversation about Trumpian things.
Yeah.
Because of course this when this is out on Friday, who knows what the situation will be? But it's been a fairly astounding week in politics, and I have to say it just seems that whatever America does, we tend to sort of mirror slightly over here. I mean, very slightly. It's like Trump light.
Well, let's hope not. After the last few days, we record this just to give you some context. We wouldn't normally announce this, but we are recording on Wednesday morning here in the UK because stuff is just happening by the hour. So if we haven't mentioned it, that's probably why.
Yes, well, that's probably why. Although Adam is staying up late into the night watching the news and news break. I mean, these are perilous times we live in, it seems to me. And this will segue eventually into my first recommendation for the week. Because it is the state of the nation.
I think you're going to steal my recommendation, aren't you?
What's that?
I've got a funny feeling. I know where you're going with this. Go on, let's see if we've got the same one.
I bet we haven't.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to recommend a true life documentary called How to Survive a Murder, which is on Sky. So that was my segue. What were you going to segue? I love that word.
Well, I was going to recommend a series, a mini-series that I watched all in one go, actually, last week. The day we got back from Rutland. I found it and binged it. It's called The Comey Rule.
Oh, it's brilliant.
Which I'm sure a lot of people will be well aware of, particularly if you're in the States. It's it's, I guess, ostensibly a political drama, but it's definitely a crime thriller as well. It's all about James Comey, who became the director of the FBI, I think shortly before Donald Trump got elected, and who was charged with leading the investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails and subsequently Trump's collusion with Russia and all the allegations that have come from that. So it is a kind of I guess, an FBI thriller as well as a political drama at the same time. And so it is. It does lean very heavily on crime. So yeah, that's my recommendation. I've very much enjoyed that. I think it's on Sky Atlantic.
I think it's absolutely brilliant. It's taken a bit of knocking from Republican organs, of course. But it's a terrific drama starring the ever wonderful Jeff Daniels as James Comey, and an extraordinary performance also from Brendan Gleeson as one Donald Trump. And I watched it with my actor's hat on as well, because Jeff Daniels is quite extraordinary. To portray a man over 4 hours in a drama whose whole raison d'etre is to not give anything away facially or in anything he says. A very guarded man.
It had to be because of the job, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. It's incredibly hard to do, but Jeff Daniels does it with he's quite superb. Yes, it delves into Comey's re-investigation into the so-called Hillary Clinton emails. I mean, there were emails; they're not so cool, I guess. But after she was acquitted and found not guilty of them being inappropriate in any way, new evidence came just before the election in 2016, which would prompt a re-investigation. Although the likelihood then was that they'd come to the same result. But the dilemma that Comey was in, for anyone who doesn't know, was that opening the inquiry so close to the election day in November would, in all probability, and it seems that it truly did, really sort of turn things in Trump's favour, which undoubtedly it did. And of course, he took an awful lot of criticism, and still does, for actually swinging the election in Trump's favour, because the investigation, as predicted, showed that there was no impropriety with those emails. But it's fascinating to see the moral dilemma that a man like Comey was in, and trying to do the best he could, even under pressure from his own family. And I think that's one of the areas where the series, I don't know whether you agree, Adam, is very good, because it does link with his wife, again, beautifully played by Jennifer Ely. And
of course, we don't know how much that sort of things is dramatised.
Some of it is dramatised, but there'll be some truth in it. They will know how the family and the daughter reacted to what their father was doing. And in places like that, it's really very moving. So, please watch it. I mean, I think it's terrific. Adam thinks it's terrific, and it's available on Catch Up, so you can see it like we both did, all in one go. Not together. We didn't watch it together, did we? With a box of chocolates on the sofa.
Holding hands.
Yes.
Snuggled up under the blanket.
We don't need to send out those particular images on this podcast.
No, it's. I think it's on Sky Atlantic over here, and originally aired on Showtime, I believe, in the States. So,
right,
you can probably watch it there somehow.
Well, I'm going to segue into something now, as I promised you. There's a true life crime, and I know it's not really what we're about on Partners in Crime, although I see no reason why we shouldn't delve into the realms of true crime, because they do prove to be, sadly in many cases, but give some inspiration for crime writers. And this one is called How to Survive a Murder. I'll tell you what it's about because I have the blurb in front of me, but I have seen it, and it's a very interesting watch, I can tell you. Just days after the shocking and brutal stabbing to death of his mother-in-law, Vibeke Rasmussen, movie maker John McGibbon picks up his camera and begins a harrowing search for truth. How to Survive a Murder is a remarkable look at a gut-wrenching tale of a tragic crime that never should have occurred. McGibbon and his family are desperate to find out what led to Rasmussen being slashed and stabbed more than 35 times late one night in her apartment in historic Plymouth, Massachusetts. Police would reveal only that they suspected a 24-year-old man, Tyler Hagmeyer, who had a violent past. Frustrated by the puzzling hostility and evasive behaviour of state and local authorities, McGibbon launches his own investigation and uncovers a web of lies and deceit spun to protect an influential Plymouth family, including police cover-ups, lenient judges and prosecutors, and the dark family secrets that turned a privileged, charming and deeply disturbed young man into a killer. Yes, it's another indictment of the strangeness of the American justice system, which comes up in these documentaries an awful lot. I'm sure they don't in any way show the full picture of a system which is markedly different from many other systems in the world. The thing that comes out of this for me on that level is these problems and these documentaries do seem to show up a real difficulty between the Justice Department and the people who are actually investigating the crimes. And because they are politically appointed attorneys of law in states and elected sheriffs and what have you, law can very often become a political hot potato, to put it mildly. And in those gaps, injustices can and do obviously take place. But this is a fascinating and deeply troubling tale about the death of this elderly lady in her 70s. That should not have happened at the hands of a young man who moves in to an apartment just across the hall in what was considered a very safe part of Plymouth, Massachusetts, and the horror of her murder. And how public knowledge of that murder and the conclusions that would have been drawn by the law turn out to be quite mistaken in certain fundamental ways, and the effect it has on the family of the murdered woman, and the sheer courage and tenacity of John McGibbon and the family to pursue it and to make a film about it. The end result is surprising, both about McGibbon and also about what actually happened to Tyler Hagmeyer and the reasons why. First of all, he found himself in that apartment, a very troubled and mentally disturbed young man in the first place, and what subsequently happened to him. And what subsequently happens to John McGibbon will also come as perhaps a surprise to many as well. So I think it's well worth reading. It's harrowing in places, but fascinating, and a story that needed to be told. And really, McGibbon and his family deserve all credit for having the courage to do so. So that's How to Survive a Murder, and it's on Sky Crime in the UK and on other platforms easily found for all of you around the world who might want to view it.
I'm glad you went down the straight crime route with that one, the pure crime route, because as you mentioned, we spoke about the Comey Rule, which is kind of loosely crime, and my book recommendation for this week is one which is also loosely crime. I tried explaining it to you before the show.
You did a very good job.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
I mean, you might cock it up now, but I mean, in actual fact, I know what it's about.
I mean, I'll probably give too much away if I was to explain it in the same way. It is a crime thriller. It's a thriller, but within, I guess, a very mild sci-fi-ish universe.
Yes.
It's not sci-fi in the sense that it's not possible. It's theoretical physics. It's based on what was it I called it? My mind's gone completely blank now.
I don't know.
Quantum mechanics.
Quantum mechanics, parallel lives.
Yes, which is theoretical, but entirely possible. In fact, the physics tells us it must be true based on what we know. But yeah, it's a remarkable thriller.
We must believe the science. Is that what you're saying?
We must believe the science.
Yes, that's what we've been saying for some time.
Yes, well, I'll read the back because that's what we do on this show. Are you happy in your life? Those are the last words Jason Desson hears before the masked abductor knocks him unconscious, before he awakes to find himself strapped to a gurney surrounded by strangers in hazmat suits, before the man he's never met smiles down at him and says, "Welcome back." In this world he's woken up to, Jason's life is not the one he knows. His wife is not his wife. His son was never born. And Jason is not an ordinary college physics professor. Is it this world or the other that's the dream? The answer lies in a journey more wondrous and horrifying than anything Jason could have imagined. I read all that out and then buggered it up on the last word.
Yeah, I know, absolutely, all the time. It's the relief of getting there, and you just let yourself slightly off the hook before you finished.
I tripped up on the finish line.
Yeah.
The Guardian called it the most helter-skelter race to the finish line thriller you'll read all year. Managed that without pausing it up. Lee Charles said it was brilliant. Andy Weir said it was exceptional. Justin Cronin said it was mind-bending, and Harlan Coben called it masterful. It's Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. If you've not read it, I would highly recommend it. It sounds a bit like this.
Oh, it sounds a bit waterlogged. Is that true? Is that, my ears, listening to that book, has it come into touch with any sort of water?
Is this anything to do with the fact that I mentioned to you before we started recording that I dropped this book in the bath the other day?
No. No. I can't remember you mentioning that. I just picked that up with my ears. That's very good. Well, it's not the only book you've dropped in the bath, because there's a David Mark book that you've dropped in the bath as well.
There is, yes.
And which is quite interesting because it's survived despite the fact that these books are in no way waterproof, and maybe that's something we ought to consider, that the book should actually have some sort of waterproofing. I mean, you can read books off your mobile phone. If you drop that in the bath.
Well, most Kobo devices are, of course, waterproof.
Utterly waterproof?
Yeah, most of them, yeah.
So basically, what we're
don't take my word for it. Read the specs.
Books are vulnerable then, are they not? Because most other areas of actually reading literature are actually waterproofed, but books, on the whole, are not in any way laminated to a degree of waterproof standard.
No, and you can set fire to them. You'd struggle to set fire to a Kobo, wouldn't you?
Well, yes, but you're not going to do that with that particular book because you enjoyed it.
I did enjoy it. I very much enjoyed it. It's I'm not one who goes in for sci-fi and things. I do like my stories to be rooted in the real world. But even for me, this was more than manageable on a sci-fi front. The sci-fi is the background that makes the plot possible. I'll put it that way. I mean, without this kind of step forward and going through the theoretical physics of it, which it doesn't go into too heavily at all, so don't worry about that. Highly recommend it, yes.
Great.
Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. In fact, I would say, if you don't want one of these fairly susceptible paperback books, which, as we said, they can easily get waterlogged, you can set fire to them, they could spontaneously combust, you just never know. So we'd highly recommend, actually, getting it in ebook form from Kobo. And if you haven't bought a book from Kobo before, use the promo code CRIME at the checkout. They'll give you 90% off of this book or any other ones you fancy. And if you follow the link in the show notes and use the promo code PARTNERS, they'll give you 40% off. So yes, Dark Matter by Blake Crouch.
Excellent. Well, that's interesting, really, because I was looking at the Kobo website, and they're promoting an awful lot of audiobooks very prominently on the site. This is based on the fact, something we've mentioned before in previous podcasts, that audiobooks have become increasingly popular this year. Coming out of lockdown, more and more, millions of more people are actually choosing to listen to their crime fiction or whatever their choice of genre may happen to be. And increasingly, there's some very, very fine audiobooks available, and I've been looking through a few of them in crime. Now, this comes on the back of, actually, I mentioned this myself, because I've just finished my own audiobook for the first rock novel, and which was a fascinating journey. I put it off for, years. I don't quite know why, but I think I found the idea of actually doing it rather daunting. And it is, you understand this, Adam, it takes quite a lot to actually do an audiobook. I mean, a book may take, 8 hours to read, possibly? It will take 8 hours to read.
Well, it'll be 8 hours of audio, but there'll be...
And then you've got to edit it, and then you've got to do something, you've got to do pickups and various other things. So it's a very long and daunting process, and one that I put off. But anyway, I completed I completed the novella this week, and it was exhausting, but it was also great fun, and I learned a great deal about it. And this is recorded in a home studio, and off it goes to a technician who actually does all the magic that you normally do, and takes out breaths and burps and other strange noises that emanate from me, apparently, without me knowing. So it was a fascinating process, and I really, really enjoyed it. And I'm beginning work on the next one next week. So looking at the top audio picks on Kobo, one that is particularly recommended is Ian Rankin's novel A Song for the Dark Times, a brand new must-read Rebus thriller. I'm sure we've actually mentioned this before on the show, but it's worth mentioning again. It is narrated by James Macpherson. I think the Macpherson is a clue to where he comes from and his appropriateness as the narrator of a Rebus novel. So if you're a John Rebus fan, then you'll know all about this, but if not, I'll give you a little bit of information about this audiobook, also available, of course, as an electronic book on your phone or reader. When his daughter Samantha calls in the dead of night, John Rebus knows it's not good news. Her husband has been missing for 2 days. Rebus fears the worst and knows from his lifetime in the police that his daughter will be the prime suspect. He wasn't the best father. The job always came first, but now his daughter needs him more than ever. But is he going as a father or a detective? As he leaves at dawn to drive to the windswept coast and a small town with big secrets, he wonders whether this might be the first time in his life where the truth is the one thing he doesn't want to find. Well, that's a great premise for a book, description. Lots of people think it's fantastic, including Mick Herron, an outstanding addition to one of the finest bodies of work in crime fiction. Michael Connolly, this is Rankin at his best. Lee Child, Ian Rankin is a genius. Well, indeed, he is. But if you want to, and people, I believe, are actually getting the audiobooks, because there's some great deals on audiobook downloads or whatever, and people buy the audiobooks and link it to their reading. So they'll read some, listen to some, read some, depending on what environment they find themselves wanting to enjoy the Rankin or whatever particular novel they want to follow. So yeah, that's audiobooks. I've got a couple of others I'll probably mention on Arsenic and Old Lace, but A Song for the Dark Times, Ian Rankin, narrated by James Macpherson, and that surname is wonderful. It's not, you have to sort of say Macpherson in a, well, in my case, a rather poor Scottish accent. But
you can.
It sounds like a great listen, and highly recommended this week by Kobo.
Marvellous. I've got a segue.
Oh, I can feel a segue coming on.
Because I have actually here an article which was on This Is Money this week about Ian Rankin.
No.
who writes the Rebus novels, of course.
May I say that is a fully legitimate segue?
Yep, he was talking about how rich he is, basically. He said,
Right.
the headline is, "I'm lucky I can create a £1 million book with a £3.50 pad of paper." And that's extraordinary origami talent.
Well, I can do it. I can do that in reverse. I can actually. I can produce a £3 book with a £1 million pad of paper. That's how long it takes.
Well, it's an impressive trick. He's been topping the bestseller lists, Ian Rankin, for the last 30 years, it says here, with his Edinburgh-based detective Inspector Rebus. Apparently, he earns more than £1 million from each new book he writes.
And thoroughly deserves to.
Yeah. He says in the...
And he only writes eight a year. So
a week. He says, he says, "My parents never earned much money. Dad works in a shop, Mum works in a factory canteen, and they lived in a council house. They were opening their pay packets at the kitchen table," he remembers, "and dividing money between payments for insurance, rent, Christmas and a summer holiday. They never bought anything on credit or had a checkbook." And he says even for him, in 1990, he'd already been married 4 years, and the only income they had was from books, which at that point weren't selling particularly well. But he says he gets paid more for each book he writes. It takes him about 6 months to write and makes him a 7-figure sum, which of course is quite good. But he's pretty frugal. He did buy a new electric car, which has been apparently his most expensive thing he's bought. Mm-hmm. But other than that, most of his money apparently goes to his charitable trust, which he has never mentioned the name of, so that they can make these donations anonymously. But apparently most of his income, a 6-figure sum each year, goes into these charitable trusts.
Well, he does. He's very generous in a philanthropic way, and
he can lend me a tenner then, can't he?
Well, do you know what? It's Ian has got a way of when he writes. Some of his money will go into his music collection, because he writes and chooses certain albums and songs depending on the story that he's telling. So each book has a sort of a soundtrack for him to listen to and inspire him on background music. So he writes with music on most of the time, I believe. And so that's fascinating. Do you do the same? Do you have a sort of a...
Yeah, for me, it's mostly to kind of block out other stuff, and I can't have music with lyrics because I'll end up typing the lyrics.
Yes.
And my books will make even less sense. So, yeah, mostly it's instrumental music I'll have if I have anything on at all.
Those sections of rap in your books, of just those moments when the actual lyrics have come through and transposed directly into your text.
Yeah, where you've got middle of a love scene and I suddenly become Snoop Dogg for half a page, that's why.
Yes, can I say it's an amazing transformation. Makes an American werewolf in wherever it's supposed to be. It looks marvellous. Well, that's interesting. Well, people write in their own particular way. I don't.
Do you have music? You've probably got the sound of people running around the house.
Yeah, there's enough ambient sound of a human nature in my household. This is another thing I found out with recording the audiobook, because even when everyone is under strict instructions to be very quiet, even when people are being as silent as they possibly can, they're very noisy.
Yes, and if you've got a good microphone, which you'll need for audiobooks, they're remarkably sensitive to the point where if somebody bites their fingernails on the other side of the house, you can hear it.
Yeah. It's terrible, and you have to be careful. I mean, all sorts of tips that I was given by, Adrian Hobart. One, he said green apples will stop you getting clacky.
Oh, really?
And all that, because that has to be taken out. Got to be careful about what you eat, because nothing ruins a section of text more than a large burp. It's antisocial in life, and it's antisocial in an audiobook. So yes, it's extraordinary. And a car, obviously a mile away, is picked up. Birds, as much as I love them, are a nightmare when you're trying to record. And God forbid anyone should go to the loo in the house. I mean, only pick up the flush, but it's traumatic and can be very frustrating. So I've been doing it when the girls have gone to school, and Amy has gone out, so the house is absolutely empty as much as possible. But even then, because we live in an Edwardian house, the creaks and groans coming from the architecture, the building itself.
They say coming from the person you kidnapped and put in the basement.
Yeah, no, they're strange enough. They're very quiet on the whole. On the whole, they're very quiet.
Been quiet for weeks now, haven't they?
And,
What's that smell?
Those screams. So it's not easy. It's not easy. So that's why an awful lot of audiobooks are sort of done in studios where all sound is sort of soaked up, and it's a lot easier. But I like doing it from home because I don't want to travel and I don't want to spend a blooming fortune on a studio.
Well, that's why I don't do my own audiobooks anymore, and that's why, despite having a fairly soundproof studio, despite it being down the other end of the driveway, you just heard the Ocado man closing his door.
Oh, I'll tell you, if Dwayne does that again, he does it most weeks, turns up in his Ocado van, gets up, smashes the door with a smirk on his face going, that's messed him up, Mr. Croft. Well,
it's usually the bin men. They're normally the ones making all the racket, aren't they? If we record on a Tuesday.
I've noticed they're in such slight competition with the Ocado. There he goes, Ocado.
He's off. He's done his bit.
Bye, Dwayne.
He's made his noise, now he's gone.
But it's interesting because one of the reasons I put it off for so long is everyone used to say, well, obviously, as an actor, you're going to narrate your own novels.
Yeah.
And I really wasn't keen to do so. And anyway, it's quite interesting because I had offers from companies to actually do it, and me go down and do it, and also to pay for me to do it. But I don't know why I put it off for so long. But I haven't now, and the proof will be in the pudding, and it's up to people who choose to listen to these things to actually thumbs up or thumbs down. But it's been a daunting process, but a happy one.
Good. Well, I look forward to hearing it. We're almost there. I do need to squeeze it.
I'll read you some now, actually.
No,
you don't have to wait.
No, it's okay. We'll do it.
Gibraltar,
yeah.
1960. Oh, sorry. I'm very happy to read it for you. You don't have to. I can do a good 2 hours.
Can you do Geordie?
I can do. Of course, I can do Geordie Munn. And I can do Geordie. I watch Ant and Dec.
That was Jamaican.
Was it?
It was closer.
Oh, okay. Well, sometimes they cross over. I'm very good at Irish, don't you know, to be sure.
A quick mention of for
accent stereotypes are us.
For our patrons, if you are one, nervous laughter. You can the October's free book of the month is now waiting in your Patreon dashboard. It is True Justice by Tyler Porter, a cracking thriller. I know you call it a fracking thriller.
Well, that's why you don't do your own audiobooks.
No, exactly. We'll talk about that a bit more on Arsenic and Old Lace, which is our after-show show, which you also get access to as a patron. So log into your dashboard and check that out. That was posted a few days ago. Fantastic book. And as a Partners in Crime patron, if indeed you are a Partners in Crime patron, and indeed you should be a Partners in Crime patron, you get access to all sorts of things, including being able to watch the episodes. You get an extra bonus episode each week, Arsenic and Old Lace. You get the free book of the month. You get all sorts of wonderful benefits from a couple of quid.
Yes, that's very
So
nice.
check out the link in the show notes to Patreon. I think we're done.
Is that it? Thank you very much.
Yeah, we're on 33 minutes now, so I'm starting to get edgy.
Well, I've enjoyed that. Thank you very, very, very much, Cadam Aroft.
Partners in Crime was presented by Adam Croft and Robert Daws and produced by Adam Croft. The theme tune was by the Caesareans. The Partners in Crime logo and imagery were designed by Stuart Beisch. Partners in Crime is sponsored by Kobo, your favourite local bookshop, perfected.